Alright, today we're having a look at Zhani's Palace 2, The Return by Nilsder94. Alright, so here we are in Zhani's Palace 2, The Return. That's some pretty great puppetry. That's a... oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna miss it! Now this is the sequel to a level that was published in LBP 1. Seems like we're on kind of like an LBP 1 era-esque kick recently. This was published super recently though, in LBP 3, but it's a return to the setting after 12 years of absence, which is... that's quite a jump. That is quite an absence, but see how Nilsder has incorporated the... oh, I love that. I love that was a great bit. That was a great bit. This is actually like an oddly good use of the cookie material, and I so seldom see that. I'm really liking what we've got on display so far. Wait, should I have been able to grab that? Where am I supposed to go? Lots of objects. I'm gonna have to delete a bunch of stuff from my my profile so it doesn't corrupt again. But that's another thing. Where do I go? Here. Oh, Bisco, don't be silly. It's clear what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to use that. I love the light up on the eyes. That was my fault. That was totally my fault. That was not that. What a weird camera zone. That's odd. I love the snakes. Oh my gosh. They're from, oh, good, we're gonna die. We're super gonna die. Oh, we not gonna, maybe? That was a bad pause. Not the level's fault, just it happens. There's, like, some real mixed metaphors here, and in the presentation, I don't know what's quite going on, like, with that, but that's okay. I'm liking the gameplay an awful lot. I love that those snakes came back from the Serpent Palace, I think? From LBP 1? I forget what it was called. I don't want to die, but I might. Okay, let's time this right, shall we? Wah! Who's the queen? Me! I mean, I'm not really down with royalty, so not much of a queen, but, you know, like, I'm throwing skulls at things. I love it. I love... look, I got a thing for skulls. That was... oh! I like that! I hope we get to use this again and it wasn't just a one-off. Because that would be sad. Get such a nice little create-nator going in there and it just being a one-off. That would be very sad. This is... how have I got the top score? Okay, I don't. This is really well done. Oh, it's a reset! Oh, crumbs! That's our timer! We gotta go back to the hub. We will talk about it there. See yas! And we're back, and Zhani's Palace 2, The Return by Nilsder94, and I'd say it's a very good green circle level. As far as the level itself, there's really not a lot negative to talk about it. It feels a little bit like a softer one for me. We're going to get into that a little bit as to why, but really there's a lot of positive here to focus on. First off, I really like the presentation an awful lot. You got really good, for the most part, material choices. I feel a little bit on the fence about that, the cookie dough as kind of a sand type material choice, but even still, at least for the colors, it fits in pretty well with the theme there. You've got a nice mixture of different material types. There's some cardboard, base cardboard, which I love, mixed in there with the the metallic gold leaf type stuff and the stone stuff, and that was really good. The puppet work was excellent as well that we saw in the beginning of the level. Some very nicely animated puppet work going on there. One thing that I thought was really well done, a very small detail that comes up a couple times during the level, is the camera has a bit of a shake on it when you're in those Serpent Shrine-esque areas. When you've got there's a set of those like flaming circles that are moving around on the tracks, and as they come close to you, the camera just shakes just a little bit in time with that, and I thought that was a really well chosen visual device there, that really works to sell the setting that you're in, and kind of like the danger that you're in. So that was really cool. I like the fact that we've got a couple of enemies in the level. They're interesting looking enemies, but more than their look, I appreciated how you deal with those enemies by using the Cratinator. That they've got kind of that cup shape to their body, and actually got to get the skull into the basket there. And it's a little bit tough sometimes to judge the angle of it, and I kind of appreciated that as giving a bit of challenge to the level. I thought that was pretty cool. It does only show up 2 times, and it feels like we could have seen that a little bit more, but even still, its inclusion I appreciated a lot. Something else that I kind of appreciated in there was, and this is going to sound a little bit weird, but angled bounce pads. And now these bounce pads that we see here are more in the LBP1 style, where they're actually physics bounce pads. But for some reason I find with either physics-based bounce pads or even with the LBP2 kind of actual bounce pad mechanical bit that you can add to the levels, for some reason putting them on an angle, and so very seldom does that actually work. They tend to throw you off into directions that you're not expecting, places that you don't want to go. These ones worked, and they worked each time. They worked really well, and like I said, it's a small bit, but it's a bit that I really appreciated a lot. Now, another thing that I really liked, and I think maybe, even though again it's kind of one of these small bits that I liked the best in the level, was the use of the wall bounce, like the wall jump mechanic there. So often when we see the wall jump in levels, and it's just as like a traversal device, you kind of go up, maybe there's another one that you're going to bounce across to, and that's like, it's very simple, it's very contained, and honestly it's kind of a little bit boring seeing it that way all the time. Seeing the wall jump here used as actually like a gameplay obstacle solving element, where interacting with those bits, and it causes them to rotate a little bit so that you can interact with them more, or that they knock a lever and cause the level to change a little bit so that you can progress on with a level. Like, that was really cool, and I see it so seldomly. It's such a neat technique whenever it shows up, and I kind of wish that we had seen it more. Now, as I mentioned in the the first impression section of the video there, that this is a kind of a return. This is a sequel after 12 years to an LBP1 level called Zhani's Palace Treasure Hunt. And so I went and I played that to get a little bit of B-roll to see how things changed. And this is kind of why I said that it's a little bit more of a soft green circle for me, because while this level is really well done, and there's not like a lot to complain about in the level, the LBP3 sequel, and it feels weirdly small compared to the LBP1 version. Now, I do notice that a lot of LBP1 levels, because they're so constrained in materials, and creators had to keep things a lot of times like quite simple in that area, and it gave them the space, perversely, to kind of build out these relatively big scope feeling levels. And now the Zhani's Palace Treasure Hunt isn't the biggest that I've seen, but it feels like there's so much more to it than what we get on hand in the sequel. The sequel is like, it's really nice and contained, but it also feels kind of like, I don't know, it feels weirdly limited, and it feels kind of like a thing that we could see in almost any platformer game, whereas like Zhani's Palace 1 feels very Little Big Planet. Like, it has that feel to it very strongly. Something else that Zhani's Palace 1 has got going for it, although this is, I don't know if this was something that Nielster94 had chosen specifically, or if this is because of the translation from, playing an LBP1 level and LBP3, but you've got a lot of, like, exposed logic in the level, and one of the reasons I feel that maybe this was a conscious choice is because it's very much on display. Like, a lot of times you'd get logic bits, like key bits, they would be hidden away from the player and wired into what they were going to change so that the player wouldn't actually see what was affecting the change, whereas we do have in a number of places here where you've actually got like those keys, those very basic logic gates that are right there in front of your face, and I think that might have been actually so players could see and could use those techniques in the levels. But I really enjoyed Zhani's Palace 1, and I think it's a really great example of LBP 1 era level building. Not to take away from the sequel, and I do strongly recommend the sequel, but I recommend that you give both of them a play. They're very different play experiences. They're both very, very worthwhile play experiences, and I'd actually kind of like to know, I don't usually ask people to comment on videos, but I would like to know that if you tried both levels, which one did you come away from, like, feeling more strongly towards? Did you feel more strongly towards Zhani's Palace 1 in LBP 1 or Zhani's Palace 2 in LBP 3? But let me know in the comments, or not, I have no idea. But I feel like I've said everything that I could say about this level. It's a good one. Go out and play it. Neilster94, thank you so much for bringing this to the community. I know that you were looking for feedback, and I feel a little bit bad that you're not going to get that feedback until like 3 weeks after you asked for it, because that's just when the episode comes out. But that's how it goes. I've got a backlog now. That happens sometimes. But I've got to go. I've talked too much. So from me, Bisco, here in Tokyo, to all of you out there, wherever you may happen to be, thank you, arigato, sayonara, see you, and ciao.